My daughter-in-law was in my kitchen, loading boxes with my dishes and pots as if this house were hers. Her hands moved quickly, not asking permission, not even looking at me. What I want, I'm going to take. I give the orders here. Her voice echoed off the walls I had painted myself so many times. Lauren didn't even turn to look at me when she said it. She just kept filling those cardboard boxes with the china my husband gave me for our 20th anniversary. The sound of the porcelain hitting the cardboard cut through my chest, but I remained still, watching from the doorway, without saying anything because I already knew what I was going to do. She just didn't know it yet. My husband bought all of this. Now I have a right to everything. That sentence left her lips with such confidence it almost made me smile. Almost. But I kept my face still, serene, cold. I let her think she had beaten me, that she had broken me, that she could walk into my home and take whatever she wanted without consequences. My name is Eleanor. I am 68 years old, and this is my house. I built it with my husband 40 years ago, when Matthew, my son, was just a little boy with round cheeks who ran barefoot through the dirt yard. These walls know every one of my tears, every laugh, every sleepless night spent watching over my family, every dawn preparing breakfast before the sun came up. The smell of stale coffee still clings to the kitchen curtains. That aroma Lauren surely hated, because she wrinkled her nose every time she walked in. But for me, that smell was a living memory. It was my husband sitting at the wooden table reading the newspaper. It was Matthew doing his homework under the yellow light of the lamp. It was my entire life contained in 900 square feet of cracked tile floors and walls that needed a new coat of paint. Lauren sealed another box with packing tape. The noise was sharp, violent. She packed away my mother's cast-iron pans, the ones I had inherited. The ones I used to cook chili for every one of Matthew's birthdays, to make the big ham on Christmas, to make chicken noodle soup when my granddaughter Chloe had a fever. Are you just going to stand there all day or what? Her voice pulled me from my thoughts. She finally looked at me. Her eyes had that gleam I knew well, contempt mixed with triumph, as if she were enjoying every second of my supposed humiliation. Just watching, I answered calmly. My voice came out calmer than I expected. Firmer. Lauren let out a short laugh, almost a bark. Well, watch closely, mother-in-law, because this is just the beginning. Matthew and I need these things. You don't cook for anyone anymore. You live alone in this huge house. It's a waste. A waste. That word floated in the air like toxic smoke. My life was a waste to her. My memories. My belongings. My space. Everything I had built with my own hands and the sweat of my brow was simply a waste that she had the right to claim. Matthew appeared in the kitchen doorway. My son, 42 years old, tall like his father, but with his shoulders slumped as if he were carrying the weight of the world. He didn't meet my eyes. He never did lately. Mom, this is necessary. You understand, right? We have expenses, the rent, the utilities. Chloe is going to college next year. I knew the truth. Matthew wasn't a victim. He was an accomplice. He had chosen silence. He had chosen to look the other way while his wife invaded my home and treated me like an invisible nuisance. I understand, I said. And it was true. I understood perfectly. Lauren lifted another box and handed it to Matthew. Take this to the car and bring more boxes from the trunk. The good pans and the knives are still left. Matthew obeyed without protest. He left the kitchen carrying my belongings like an employee following orders. Lauren stayed with me, alone. And in that moment, something in her expression changed. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips. You know, Eleanor, I always knew this day would come. From the day I married your son, you thought you were the matriarch, the owner of everything. But times change. And now I am the lady of this family. She moved closer to me, so close I could smell her sweet, cloying perfume, so different from the soft lavender scent I always wore. So get used to it, because I'm going to come whenever I want. I'm going to take what I need, and you're not going to say anything. Because if you do, I'll tell Matthew not to see you anymore, and I'll forbid Chloe from coming too. Do you want to be left completely alone? No family? No one? Her words were sharp, calculated to wound me deeply, and they succeeded. I felt something break inside me. But it wasn't my will. It was the last trace of doubt I had about what I had to do. I nodded slowly. "It's fine, Lauren. Do what you have to do." She blinked, surprised by my answer. She expected tears. She expected pleading. She expected me to get on my knees and beg her not to take my family away. But I just gave her calmness, acceptance, apparent resignation. "Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable for once in your life." Matthew returned with more empty boxes. Lauren went back to her work, filling them with my silverware, my mugs, my memories. I stood there for 30 more minutes, watching them carry 4 complete boxes to their car parked in front of my house. When they finished, Lauren wiped her hands on her pants as if she had touched something dirty. "See you soon, mother-in-law. And next time, I'm taking the living room furniture. Those antique armchairs are worth money." They left without saying goodbye. The car started and disappeared down the street. I closed the door, locked it, bolted it, and finally, I allowed myself to breathe. I walked to my bedroom. I opened the drawer of my dresser. I took out the manila envelope I had hidden there 3 weeks ago. Inside were the documents my friend Helen had helped me get. The papers that proved this house was completely in my name and had been for 20 years. The will I had updated with a lawyer. The photographs Chloe had taken in secret the last few times Lauren came to take things. 3 days. That's what Mr. Hayes, the lawyer, had told me. Give me 3 days and everything will be ready. Today was day 2. I sat on the edge of my bed. I touched the knitted quilt I had made myself, stitch by stitch, during a long, cold winter. I looked at the photographs on the wall. My husband smiling. Matthew as a child. Chloe as a baby in my arms. And for the first in months, I smiled. A small, calm smile, filled with a certainty I hadn't felt in years. Tomorrow, Lauren would receive a visit she would never forget. And when she opened that door, as if she owned the place, her legs would tremble when she discovered the truth. That I was not a helpless old woman. That I was not an obstacle. That I was Eleanor. And nobody, absolutely nobody, was going to take what was mine. The house fell silent after they left. A heavy, dense silence that crept into every corner like a cold fog. I walked to the kitchen and saw the empty spaces where my pots used to be. The bare hooks on the wall, the shelves with gaps like open mouths. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the contained rage I had been holding in my chest for months. Every insult disguised as a comment. Every visit where Lauren inspected my house as if it were a thrift store. Every time Matthew looked away when she spoke to me as if I were a servant. The phone rang. It was Helen. "Are they gone?" she asked without even saying hello. "Yes. They took 4 boxes. My mother's pans, the anniversary china, the silver flatware." I heard Helen take a deep breath on the other end of the line. "That woman is a snake, Eleanor. But tomorrow, her venom runs out." "I know," I replied, and this time my voice sounded firm, completely firm. "Do you have everything ready? The papers? The photographs? Everything." Chloe brought me the last photos last night. She came over after Matthew and Lauren were asleep. "That girl is smarter than her father ever was." Helen let out a short laugh. "That girl adores you, and she has a backbone. Not like her father, who let himself be tamed by that woman." "Let's not talk about Matthew right now," I said. "It hurts too much." And it was true. Every time I thought of my son, I felt something twist inside me. The boy I raised, the man who should be defending me, turned into a stranger who allowed his wife to humiliate me in my own home. Helen changed the subject. "What time is the appointment tomorrow?" "At 10 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Hayes is going to arrive with the official documents and the inspector from the County Register of Deeds. Lauren said she'd be back early to take the living room furniture." "Perfect. Then she'll be there when they arrive." "Yes, and Matthew too. Probably. Lauren always brings him along as her personal delivery guy." We hung up after Helen made me promise to call her as soon as it was over. I sat at the kitchen table, that old wooden table where we had eaten as a family for decades. I ran my fingers over the marks on the surface. A burn mark from when Matthew was 8 and dropped a hot pan. A deep scratch from when my husband tried to fix a chair and the screwdriver slipped. memories carved in wood. I barely slept that night. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house's nightly sounds. The creaking of the beams, the wind hitting the windows, the distant bark of a stray dog. I thought about my husband, about how he had put this house in my name before he died. Eleanor, he had told me as we signed the papers at the lawyer's office, this house is yours. No matter what happens, no one can take it from you. Promise me you'll never let it go. And I had promised him. With tears in my eyes and his weak hand in mine, he died 2 months later. Pancreatic cancer. Quick and cruel. He left me alone in this big house with memories in every corner and a son who still needed to finish college. I worked cleaning houses for 5 years to pay for his education. I got up at 5 in the morning. I scrubbed other people's floors. I cleaned bathrooms that weren't mine. I saved every dollar I could so Matthew could get his degree, so he could have a better future than ours. And when he finally graduated, when he got his job at the accounting firm, I thought it had all been worth it, that my sacrifice had paid off. But then he met Lauren. She was a secretary at the same firm. Pretty, young, with that perfect smile that showed pearly white teeth. At first, she was kind to me. She called me Mrs. Vance with respect. She helped me set the table when they came for Sunday dinner. She asked about my health and my friends. Everything changed after the wedding, as if the ring on her finger had given her permission to show her true face. The comments started subtly. "Oh, Mrs. Vance, this house needs renovating. It's so outdated. Are you still using these old dishes? We bought some new, modern ones. Matthew deserves to live better, don't you think?" Then came the more direct hints. That I lived alone in a very large house. That they were paying rent, and it wasn't fair. That Matthew had a right to his inheritance now. That I should move into a smaller apartment and give them this property. And I always said no. Politely, calmly, but firmly. So Lauren stopped being subtle. She started coming over unannounced, going through my things, saying she would borrow this or that, and Matthew never said a thing. He just carried the boxes to the car and avoided my gaze. I got out of bed at 6 in the morning. I showered slowly, letting the hot water relax my tense muscles. I got dressed in my best clothes, a wine-colored dress I had bought years ago for Matthew's graduation. I combed my gray hair back, gathering it into a simple but elegant bun. I put on the pearl earrings my husband gave me on our first anniversary. I looked in the mirror. The wrinkles around my eyes, the deep lines on my forehead, the age spots on my hands. 68 years reflected in every mark on my skin. But my eyes were shining, clear, determined, alive. I made coffee. The aroma filled the empty kitchen. I sat down to wait. At 9:30, I heard a car park outside. I looked through the window. It was Matthew and Lauren. She got out of the vehicle with a triumphant energy, almost skipping. Matthew followed behind, carrying more empty boxes. They rang the doorbell. I opened the door. "Good morning," I said in a neutral voice. Lauren didn't even respond. She walked straight in, pushing me slightly with her shoulder as she passed. Matthew mumbled an almost inaudible, "Hi, Mom," and followed her inside. Lauren was already in the living room, evaluating the furniture with her eyes. She ran her hand over the back of the armchair where my husband used to sit to watch the news. "This one is old, but it still works. We can reupholster it. And that coffee table is solid wood. It's worth about $200 if we sell it." Matthew put the boxes on the floor. "Mom, we need this furniture. We barely have anything in the apartment." I interrupted him. "Are you going to take everything?" Lauren turned to look at me with that smile I already knew. "Not everything, mother-in-law. I'll leave you the bed and the dresser in your room. I'm not a bad person. But we need the rest more than you do." She walked over to the bookshelf and started pulling out the books my husband had collected for years. She threw them into a box without care, as if they were trash. The doorbell rang. The three of us turned towards the door. "Are you expecting someone?" Lauren asked, annoyed. "Yes," I replied. "I am." I walked to the door with slow steps. My heart was beating hard but steady. I took a deep breath. I put my hand on the doorknob, and I opened it. Outside stood Mr. Hayes, a man in his 50s with a gray suit and a leather briefcase, and alongside him, Inspector Mark Thompson from the County Register of Deeds, in his official uniform and a folder under his arm. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance," Mr. Hayes said. "We're here as we discussed." "Please, come in," I replied, stepping aside. They entered my house. Their shoes echoed on the tile floor. They walked straight into the living room where Lauren and Matthew were frozen, looking at them with confused expressions. And that's when I saw Lauren's face change. How her eyes went from confidence to confusion. How her legs, those legs that always carried her through my house as if she owned it, began to tremble slightly, because she was finally realizing that I was not what she thought. Mr. Hayes entered my living room with the authority of someone who has the law on their side. Inspector Thompson followed him, his uniform impeccable, his expression serious and professional. Lauren took a step back, still holding one of my husband's books. Matthew remained paralyzed next to the empty boxes. "Who are you?" Lauren asked. Her voice tried to sound firm, but I detected the tremor at the end of the sentence. "Good morning," the lawyer replied with cold politeness. "I am Julian Hayes, Mrs. Eleanor Vance's attorney, and this is Inspector Mark Thompson from the County Register of Deeds. We are here on an official matter related to this property." Lauren blinked several times, as if processing the words but unable to understand them. She looked at Matthew for support, but my son just stared at the floor, his face pale. "Official matter," Lauren repeated. "I don't understand. This is the family home. We are family." "That is precisely why we are here," Inspector Thompson said, opening his folder. "We have received a complaint of trespassing and theft of belongings. I need to verify some information before proceeding." My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. But I kept my face serene, my hands clasped in front of me, my posture upright. I had waited for this moment for weeks. I had planned it with Helen. I had rehearsed it in my mind hundreds of times. "Trespassing?" Lauren asked with a nervous laugh. "That's ridiculous. I'm the daughter-in-law. Matthew is the son. We have a right to be here." Mr. Hayes took several documents from his briefcase. "Ma'am, what is your full name?" "Lauren Vance. And do you have any document that proves ownership or legal rights over this dwelling?" Lauren's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted quickly to Matthew, then to the furniture, then to me. "My husband bought this house. Matthew is his son. When she dies, everything is ours." "I see," the lawyer said in a neutral tone. "There are several errors in that statement. First, Mrs. Vance's husband did not buy this house alone. They bought it together, as a married couple, 40 years ago. Second, before he passed away, he executed a deed transferring his percentage of the property completely to Mrs. Vance's name. Here is the notarized document." He extended a paper toward Lauren. She didn't take it. She just stared at it as if it were a venomous snake. "That can't be true," she whispered. Inspector Thompson intervened. "It is completely true. I verified the records myself this morning. This property is 100% in the name of Eleanor Vance. There is no other name on the deed, not even her son's." Matthew finally spoke. His voice was hoarse, barely audible. "Mom, why did you never tell me?" I looked him directly in the eyes for the first time in months. "Why did you never ask, Matthew? You were never interested in knowing. You just assumed you had a right to everything without even speaking to me." I saw something break in his expression. Guilt, shame, pain. But it was too late for that. Lauren dropped the book she was holding. The thud echoed on the floor. "This is absurd. We've been helping her. We came to take things she doesn't use anymore. It's not theft. It's family. Helping family." Mr. Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in the gesture. "Helping? I have testimonies and photographs here that prove otherwise. Mrs. Vance has documented every one of your visits for the last 3 months. Every object you took without permission. Every threat you, Mrs. Lauren, made against my client." He took an envelope from the briefcase and pulled out several photographs. He placed them on the coffee table that Lauren had been evaluating just minutes before. The images clearly showed Lauren carrying boxes from my house, Matthew putting things in the trunk of his car, Lauren pointing her finger at me aggressively. My granddaughter Chloe had taken them from the upstairs window during her secret visits. That brave girl who came at night when her parents were asleep to hug me and tell me everything would be okay. Those photos don't prove anything, Lauren said, but her voice no longer had conviction, only desperation. Inspector Thompson took a small recorder from his folder. We also have this. Audio recorded 3 days ago in this very house. He pressed the play button. Lauren's voice filled the living room. Clear, unmistakable, venomous. I'm going to come whenever I want. I'm going to take what I need. And you're not going to say anything. Because if you do, I'll tell Matthew not to see you anymore. And I'll forbid Chloe from coming too. Do you want to be left completely alone? No family? No one? The silence that followed was absolute, heavy, suffocating. Lauren swayed slightly. She grabbed the back of the armchair to keep from falling. Her face had lost all its color. Her lips trembled, trying to form words that wouldn't read. That is emotional blackmail and extortion, Mr. Hayes said, putting the recorder away. Added to the theft of private property, we are talking about serious offenses. Mrs. Vance has every legal right to press charges against you. Matthew finally reacted. He took a step toward me, his eyes full of tears. Mom, I didn't know. I didn't know she said that to you. I just thought, what did you think, Matthew? I asked, my voice harder than I intended. Did you think I was happy to see you taking things from my house? Did you think it didn't hurt me every time your wife spoke to me like I was trash? Did you think I didn't have feelings? I just wanted to help. We need money for Chloe, for college. Lies, I intervened. Chloe has a full scholarship. She told me so herself. You needed money because Lauren wants a new car, because she wants to redecorate the apartment, because she wants to travel to Cancun next month. I watched as Matthew turned to look at Lauren with an expression of complete betrayal. Is that true? Lauren didn't answer. She just pressed her lips together into a thin, white line. Inspector Thompson closed his folder. Mrs. Vance, do you wish to press formal charges? Everyone looked at me. The lawyer with professional expectation, the inspector with official neutrality, Matthew with silent pleading, Lauren with barely contained hatred. This was the moment I had waited for, the moment of justice. But it was also the moment to decide what kind of justice I wanted. I took a deep breath. I am not going to press charges, I said finally, but I have conditions. Lauren exhaled with visible relief. Matthew closed his eyes. First condition, I continued. I want everything you have taken from my house returned. Every plate, every pot, every object, everything. You bring it back this week, or I press those charges. Mr. Hayes nodded as he took notes. Second condition. Matthew and Lauren are forbidden from entering my house without my explicit permission. If you show up uninvited again, I will call the police immediately. But Mom, Matthew tried to say. I raised my hand to silence him. I'm not finished. Third condition. Chloe can visit me whenever she wants. You have no right to forbid her from seeing her grandmother. If you try to keep us apart, I will not only press charges for what you've already done, but I will also sue for parental alienation. Lauren finally found her voice. You can't do that. I can and I will, I replied, looking directly at her. And the fourth condition, the most important one. My will is already made and signed. This house, when I die, will be for Chloe. Not for Matthew, not for you, for my granddaughter. The only person in this family who still treats me with respect. Matthew slumped into the armchair, his face in his hands. Lauren was trembling with contained rage, but she said nothing. She knew she had lost, completely. Mr. Hayes handed them a document. If you sign this, you accept the conditions and waive any future claim on this property or Mrs. Vance's belongings. Matthew signed first, with a trembling hand. Lauren took 5 full minutes, staring at the paper as if she could make it disappear with the force of her hatred. But finally, she signed. Inspector Thompson stamped the documents. It is done. This is officially registered. Any violation of these conditions will be considered contempt and will result in immediate legal action. You can go, I said in a calm voice. Matthew stood up slowly. He looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. Lauren left first, walking fast, almost running. Matthew followed her, carrying the empty boxes they had brought. The same boxes they thought they would fill with my furniture. The door closed behind them. Mr. Hayes and Inspector Thompson stayed for a few more minutes, checking that all the documents were in order. I watched them sign, stamp, and organize the papers into different folders. Every movement was methodical, professional, final. "Mrs. Vance," the lawyer said as he put everything in his briefcase, "you did the right thing. Many people in your situation let this kind of abuse happen for fear of losing their family. But what they were doing was a crime." "I know," I replied. "It took me a long time to accept it, but I know." Inspector Thompson handed me a card with his number. "If they bother you again, call me immediately. It doesn't matter the time. These kinds of situations can escalate quickly. Thank you. To both of you. You don't know how much this means to me." They said goodbye with formal handshakes. I walked them to the door. I watched them get into their vehicles and drive away. When the last car disappeared from view, I closed the door and slid the bolt. And then, only then, did I let myself cry. I collapsed onto the armchair where my husband used to sit, that old armchair Lauren wanted to take. I buried my face in my hands and let out everything I had been holding in for months. Years, maybe. The pain of watching my son become a stranger. The humiliation of being treated like a nuisance in my own home. The fear of being left completely alone. The rage of having to defend myself against my own family. I cried until I had no more tears left, until my throat ached and my eyes burned, until the sun changed position and the shadows in the living room grew long in a different way. The phone rang. It was Helen. "It's over?" she asked urgently. "Yes," I replied, my voice hoarse. "It's over. Are you okay?" "I don't know. I think so. I don't think so. I don't know what I feel. It's normal, Eleanor. You just confronted your son. That's not easy for any mother." He left without saying anything but, "I'm sorry." As if those words could fix everything. Helen sighed deeply. Weak men always say they're sorry when it's too late. "And the snake?" She left with hatred in her eyes, but she signed the papers. She has no choice. Good. Now comes the hard part. Rebuilding. I didn't answer. I didn't know how to respond to that. "I'm on my way," Helen said. "Make coffee. The good stuff, not that instant garbage." She arrived in 20 minutes. She hung up before I could protest. But deep down, I was glad. I didn't want to be alone right then. Not yet. I washed my face in the bathroom. My eyes were red and swollen. My skin looked tired, marked by the crying. But there was something different in my expression. Something I hadn't seen in a long time. Strength. Dignity regained. I put water on to boil. I took out the good coffee beans I saved for special occasions. Helen was right. This was a moment that deserved the good coffee. When she arrived, she was carrying a bag of pastries from the corner bakery. She walked in without knocking, as she always did, using the key I had given her years ago. She found me in the kitchen, pouring coffee into the mugs that Lauren hadn't managed to take. "You look terrible," she said bluntly as she sat down. "Thanks," I replied with a small smile. "You're looking charming today, too." That's my Eleanor. Still has a sense of humor after the war. We drank coffee in silence for several minutes. The pastry was fresh, fluffy, with crisp sugar on top. It tasted exactly as it should. Like Sundays from my childhood. Like the simple days when life was less complicated. "Tell me everything," Helen said finally. "Every detail." I told her. From the moment I opened the door until they signed the documents. Every word spoken. Every expression on their faces. The trembling in Lauren's legs. Matthew's tears. Lauren's voice on the recorder saying those horrible things. Helen listened without interrupting. She just nodded from time to time, took sips of coffee, bit into her pastry. When I finished, she wiped her hands on a napkin and looked me straight in the eye. "You did the right thing, Eleanor. But now comes what I told you. The rebuilding. I don't know if I want to rebuild anything. I'm tired, Helen. So tired. I know. But you can't just sit here waiting for sadness to consume you. You need to live again. Really live. Not just exist. And how do I do that? How do I move on knowing my son chose that woman over me? He didn't choose her over you. He chose himself. His own comfort, not having to face conflict. That doesn't make you less valuable. It just makes him more of a coward. Her words were harsh but true. Matthew had always been like that. Ever since he was a child, he avoided confrontation. He preferred to stay quiet rather than defend a position. And Lauren had seen that weakness and exploited it. Tomorrow, Helen continued, you're coming with me to the community center. There's a knitting class on Tuesdays and a book club on Thursdays. You need to get out of this house, meet new people. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Nobody is ever ready for anything. But we do it anyway. That's life. We finished our coffee. Helen stayed with me until it got dark. We watched an old soap opera on TV. We commented on how ridiculous the dialogue was. We laughed at the actress's exaggerated hairstyles. For a moment, I could almost forget everything that had happened. When she left, the house was silent again. But it was a different silence. Not heavy or oppressive, just quiet. I got ready for bed. I put on my cotton nightgown. I lay down in my bed. I looked at the ceiling, and for the first time in months, I slept through the entire night without waking up. The following days were strange. I expected Matthew to call, to come and apologize properly, to try and fix things. But there were no calls, no visits, just silence. But Chloe did come. She showed up on Wednesday afternoon, after school. She rang the doorbell, and when I opened the door, she threw herself into my arms, crying, "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I didn't know Mom was treating you like that. Dad told me you kicked us out of the house." I hugged her tight. She smelled like teen perfume and the mint gum she always chewed. My beautiful granddaughter. My only real ally in this broken family. "Your dad didn't tell the truth," I replied. "I didn't kick anyone out. I just defended myself." "I know. I heard them talking last night." Mom was furious. She said she had underestimated you, that she didn't think you had the guts to stand up to her. I smiled despite the pain. Well, she was wrong. We went into the house. I made her hot chocolate, like when she was little. We sat in the kitchen and she told me everything. How Lauren had come home that day furious, screaming that I had humiliated her. How Matthew tried to defend me, but Lauren shut him down, saying he was just as guilty. How they had fought all night. "Mom says I can't come see you anymore," Chloe said in a shaky voice. "But I'm not going to listen to her. I'm 17. I can make my own decisions. Be careful, my child. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me." "You're not to blame for anything, Grandma. They're the ones who are wrong. And I'm not going to abandon you like Dad did." Those words broke me and healed me at the same time. I cried again, but this time they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of love, of gratitude for having at least one person in my family who still saw me as a human being worthy of respect. Chloe stayed late. We made cookies together. We looked at old photos. I told her stories about when Matthew was a boy, stories she had never heard, stories of a son I had loved with every fiber of my being. When she left, she gave me an envelope. "Open it when you're alone," she said. I waited until her silhouette disappeared down the street. I closed the door. I opened the envelope. Inside was $500 in bills and a note written in her clear, round handwriting. "Grandma, this is the money I saved from my weekend job. I know Dad and Mom took things from you. This is so you can replace whatever you need. I love you more than words can say. You are the strongest woman I know, Chloe." I sat on the entryway floor with the note in my hands, and I knew that not all was lost, that real love still existed, that it was worth moving forward, because I had a granddaughter who loved me. And that was more valuable than anything Lauren could ever take. On Friday morning, Matthew finally called. I was watering the plants in the yard when the phone rang. I saw his name on the screen and hesitated to answer. I let it ring 3 more times before picking up. "Mom," his voice said on the other end. He sounded tired, defeated. "Matthew, I need to talk to you. Please. We're talking now." "No, in person. I need to see you." Part of me wanted to say no, that it was too late, that he had his chance and wasted it. But another part, The part that was still his mother couldn't refuse completely. Fine, come tomorrow at 10 in the morning. Alone. Lauren is not welcome here. I know, she's not coming. We hung up without saying goodbye. I put the phone in my apron pocket and kept watering the plants. The red flowers I had planted in the spring were blooming beautifully. The green leaves glistened under the sunday. Life went on, with or without the family drama. That afternoon I went with Helen to the community center, as I had promised. The place was an old but well-maintained building, with cream-colored walls and worn mosaic floors. There was a group of women my age, sitting in a circle, knitting and talking. "This is Eleanor," Helen announced, "my best friend. And before you ask, yes, she's new, and no, she doesn't bite." The women laughed. One of them, a thin lady, with thick glasses and completely white hair, motioned for me to sit next to her. "I'm Margaret," she said, extending her hand. "I've been coming here for 3 years. It's the best place to escape the afternoon soap operas." I sat down. Helen passed me knitting needles and terracotta-colored yarn. I hadn't knitted in years, but my hands remembered the movements. Stitch after stitch. The rhythm became meditative, relaxing. The women talked about everything. Their grandchildren, the news, recipes they had tried that week. No one asked me why I was there or what had brought me. They simply accepted me into their circle as if I had always belonged. "There's a dance class on Wednesdays," Margaret told me as her needles moved with expert speed. "Salsa and cumbia. It's a lot of fun. You should come." "I don't know how to dance," I replied. Nobody knew at first, but the teacher, Andrea, is very patient. Besides, it's good exercise. At our age, we need to move our bones. The others nodded, laughing. A lady named Andrea Nava, not the dance teacher, but another with the same name, told us how she had learned to dance at 72 and was now the star of family parties. I listened to their stories, their laughter, their unsolicited advice on everything from removing tough stains to dealing with noisy neighbors. And I realized something important. I was not alone. There was a whole world of women who had been through their own battles, who had survived, who had found ways to keep going. When Helen and I left the community center, it was already dark. We walked slowly through the streets lit by yellow lampposts. "See? It wasn't so bad," Helen said. "No," I admitted. "It was good. Very good, in fact. I told you you needed to get out. You can't live locked up in that house with your memories." "I know. You're right. I'm always right. You should write that down somewhere." I laughed. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. That night, I slept peacefully again. I dreamed of my husband. We were young, dancing at our wedding. He was spinning me around and I was laughing with my head thrown back. When I woke up, instead of sadness, I felt peace. As if he were telling me it was okay to move on. That it was okay to be happy again. Saturday came quickly. I got up early, showered, and dressed in comfortable but presentable clothes. I made coffee but didn't eat breakfast. My stomach ached with nerves. At 10 o'clock sharp, Matthew knocked on the door. I let him in. He looked terrible. Deep dark circles under his eyes. His hair was messy. His shirt was wrinkled as if he had slept in it. He sat on the armchair without being invited and covered his face with his hands. "I don't know where to start," he said in a choked voice. "Start at the beginning," I replied, sitting across from him. It took him several minutes to speak. He took deep breaths, trying to control the emotions that were clearly overwhelming him. "Lauren and I fought. A lot. Ever since the lawyer came, it hasn't stopped. She blames me, says I should have known the house was in your name, that I should have demanded my share of the inheritance when Dad died." I listened without interrupting. I told her there was no inheritance to demand, that you and Dad bought the house together, that it made sense it was in your name, but she doesn't see it that way. She says you manipulated me, that you brainwashed Chloe against me. "And what do you believe?" I asked. Matthew raised his head. His eyes were red. "I believe I'm an idiot. I believe I let my wife treat you like trash because it was easier than confronting her. I believe I'm a coward. At least we agree on that. I deserve that. I deserve for you to hate me." "I don't hate you, Matthew. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt, but I don't hate you. You're my son." He started to cry, thick tears that rolled down his cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I don't know how it all got so out of control. At first it was just Lauren saying we needed money, that you lived alone and had so much space, and I thought maybe she was right, that maybe we could help each other. Help each other by taking my things without permission? By invading my privacy? By threatening me? I know. Every time we came, I felt like it was wrong, but she said it was normal, that families help each other. And I wanted to believe her, because it was easier than admitting we were stealing from you. Then admit it now. Say it out loud." Matthew took a shaky breath. "We were stealing from you. I was stealing from my own mother. And I let Lauren threaten you and humiliate you because I didn't have the courage to defend you." His words hung in the air between us. Raw, honest, painful. "Why did you come today, Matthew? What do you want from me?" "I want you to forgive me. I know I don't deserve it. I know you'll probably never be able to forgive me completely. But I need to try. I need you to know that I realize what I did, what I lost. You lost my trust. You lost the right to enter my house whenever you want. You lost the will that would have made everything yours. I know, and I accept that. But I don't want to lose my mother. I don't want time to pass, and when you're gone, I have to live with the weight of having treated you this way." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood kids were playing in the street. Their laughter came muffled through the glass. "I'm going to be honest with you, Matthew. I don't know if I can forgive you right now. I need time. I need to see if your words are real or just temporary guilt that will disappear as soon as you go back to Lauren. I'm not going back to her. We're separating." I turned, surprised. "What?" "I asked for a divorce. Last night. I can't be with someone who made me become this version of myself. Someone who made me hurt my own mother. And Chloe? She's going to stay with me. She's 17. She can decide. And she chose not to live with her mother after everything that happened." I processed the information slowly. Part of me felt relief. Another part felt sadness for the broken family we had created. "That doesn't fix what happened," I said. "I know, but it's a start. I'm going to therapy. I already made the appointment. I need to understand why I was so weak, why I allowed all of this." I sat back down. I looked at him for a long time. I saw the 42-year-old man, but I also saw the 8-year-old boy who cried when he fell off his bike, the shy teenager who asked me for advice about girls, the proud young man who graduated from college. "I need time," I repeated. "But I'm not closing the door completely. You can call. You can come visit. But it has to be different. You have to show me with actions, not words, that you've changed." "I will. I promise you. And Lauren can never come back here. That is non-negotiable." "I understand. She doesn't want to come back, either. She says this house is bad luck." It almost made me laugh, my house being bad luck, as if the problem were the place and not the people. Matthew stood up. "I brought something in the car. Can I bring it in?" "What is it?" "Your things. Everything we took. I packed it all last night. There are 6 boxes." I nodded. He went out and came back carrying the boxes one by one. He placed them in the living room carefully. He opened them to show me the contents. My plates, my pots, the anniversary china, the silver flatware. It was all there. The last box contained something else. An envelope with money. $500, Matthew said, for the value of the things Lauren already sold before I realized. It's not enough to make up for it, but it's what I could gather. I took the envelope with trembling hands. $500. The same amount Chloe had given me days before. It was as if the universe was trying to return what had been taken from me, little by little, in unexpected ways. "You didn't have to do this," I said, putting the envelope in my apron pocket. "Yes, I did. It's the least I could do. Lauren sold your copper pans at the flea market, and some paintings Dad had given you. She didn't even ask me. She just sold them and used the money to buy shoes." I felt a pang of pain hearing that. The paintings were landscapes my husband had found in an antique shop. They weren't worth much money, but to me, they were priceless. They were his eyes choosing something beautiful for me. his hands carrying them home, his smile when he hung them on the dining room wall. "It doesn't matter anymore," I lied. "What matters is that they're back." Matthew nodded, but we both knew it did matter, that every lost object was a piece of memory that would never be exactly the same. He helped me unpack everything. We put the plates on the shelves, the pots on their hooks, the anniversary china back in the cabinet. We worked in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. When we finished, I made him a sandwich. It wasn't much, just ham and cheese with mayonnaise, but it was what I used to make him when he got home from school. He ate it slowly, savoring every bite as if it were the best meal in the world. "I missed your food," he said, his mouth half full. "Lauren cooks well, but it doesn't taste the same." "Everyone cooks with their own love," I replied, "or their own lack of it." Matthew put the sandwich down. "She never loved you, did she? From the beginning, she only wanted what she could get." "I don't know. Maybe at first, she felt something genuine. But money and ambition change people. Or maybe they just reveal who they always were. I was so blind, so stupid. You were in love. And then you were comfortable. It's different." He stayed a while longer. We talked about small things, about work, about Chloe and her plans for college, about how he was looking for a cheaper apartment now that he would be alone with his daughter. We avoided the deep topics. We weren't ready yet. When he left, he gave me a long hug. He smelled different, like cheap detergent and exhaustion. He wasn't wearing the expensive cologne Lauren used to buy him. He hugged me like he did when he was a child, tightly, as if I were his only anchor in a storm. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom." I closed the door after he left and leaned against it. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what to feel. Relief, sadness, hope, fear, all mixed together in an impossible knot. I called Helen to tell her everything. She listened without interrupting until I was finished. "Do you believe him?" she finally asked. "I want to believe him. But words are easy. Actions are what count." "Exactly. Give him time. Let him show you he's changed. And in the meantime, you keep living your life. Don't sit around waiting for him to redeem himself." She was right, as always. The following days were calmer. I went back to the community center. I joined the book club. We were reading an Isabel Allende novel, and the discussions were passionate. Every woman had a different opinion about the characters, about the decisions they made, about the fate they deserved. I also went to the dance class. The teacher, Andrea, turned out to be an energetic 55-year-old woman with a contagious smile and infinite patience. She taught me the basic salsa steps while the other women danced around. "Don't think so much," she told me. "Feel the music. Let your body move on its own." It was harder than it looked. My knees protested. My feet got tangled. But little by little, I started to find the rhythm. And when I finally managed a full turn without tripping, all the women applauded as if I had won an award. Chloe came to visit me twice a week. She told me about school, about her friends, about the college entrance exams. She had decided to study law. "I want to help people like you, Grandma," she told me. "People who need someone to defend them." It filled me with pride to hear her. This brave girl who had taken my side when no one else did, who had given me her saved money, who had chosen to live with her father despite everything because she couldn't stand being under the same roof as Lauren. One Tuesday afternoon, while knitting at the community center, Margaret asked me a question that took me by surprise. "Did you ever think about getting remarried, Eleanor?" I looked up from the yarn. "What? After your husband died, did you think about finding someone else?" The truth is, no. It never crossed my mind. "You should consider it. You're not dead. You're still young." "I'm 68 years old, Margaret." She shrugged. "So what? My cousin got married at 72. Now she travels the world with her new husband. They're happy as teenagers." The other women joined the conversation. Each one had a story. An aunt who found love at 65. A neighbor who started dating a widower at 70. A sister who fell in love on a cruise at 69. "I'm not looking for romance," I said, trying to close the topic. "I'm fine alone." "Being fine alone and being open to companionship are not mutually exclusive," said Andrea Nava, the one from the knitting group. You can be independent and still enjoy dinner with someone interesting. They didn't push it, but their words stuck in my head. Was I really fine alone? Or had I just gotten used to the solitude because it seemed safer than taking a risk again? That night, as I prepared dinner just for myself, I looked at the empty table. A single chair occupied, a single plate, a single glass. There was something profoundly sad in that image. Not because I needed someone to be complete, but because humans aren't designed to be completely isolated. On Wednesday, Matthew called again, this time not to apologize, but to invite me to dinner with him and Chloe on Sunday. Nothing fancy, he said. Just tacos at that place you like near the park. I hesitated, but Chloe took the phone. Please, Grandma, Dad is trying. He really is. Give him a chance. I accepted, because Chloe asked me to, and because, deep down, I wanted to try too. Sunday arrived, overcast. I put on my wine-colored dress again, the pearl earrings, a little pale pink lipstick. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who no longer looked defeated. Tired, yes, marked by life also, but not defeated. Matthew picked me up at 6. He was alone. Chloe would meet us at the taco stand. We drove in silence for the first few minutes. Then he put on an oldies radio station, songs that I used to listen to with my husband. Chloe is excited, Matthew said. She hasn't stopped talking about it since I told her you were coming. That girl is special. She gets it from you. She has your strength, your character. I was surprised to hear him say that. Matthew had never been good with compliments. We arrived at the taco stand. It was a small place, with plastic tables and red checkered tablecloths. The smell of grilled meat and onions filled the air. Chloe was already there, sitting at a corner table, waving when she saw us. We had steak tacos and al pastor. We drank horchata. We talked about simple things, about Chloe's school, about the new apartment Matthew had found, about my dance class and how I had learned to do turns without getting dizzy. For a moment, we almost seemed like a normal family. I could almost forget all the pain of the past month. Almost. But then Matthew said something that brought me back to reality. Lauren is fighting the divorce. She says she deserves half of everything. She's even claiming she has a right to a part of your house because I'm your son. The taco got stuck in my throat. What? My lawyer says she has no legal basis. The house was never in my name. But she's going to try anyway, just to complicate things. Chloe put her taco down on her plate. Mom is obsessed. She says the family owes her, that she wasted years of her life with us and deserves to be compensated. How convenient for her to say that now, I muttered. The rest of the dinner was more tense. We talked less. We ate faster. When we finished, Matthew took me home. Don't let Lauren take away your peace, Mom. I'm going to handle this. I promise you. I nodded but said nothing. Matthew's promises didn't carry the same weight as before. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake thinking about Lauren, about her limitless ambition, about how even now, even after losing, she was still looking for ways to take what wasn't hers. I got up and went to my room. I took out all the documents Mr. Hayes had left me. I read them one by one, making sure everything was in order. The deed to the house in my name, the will leaving everything to Chloe, the restraining orders against Lauren. Everything was perfect. Legal. Protected. But still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. That Lauren still had one more card to play. That the battle was just beginning. 2 weeks of relative calm passed. Matthew called me every 3 days to report on the divorce proceedings. Lauren was being impossible, according to him, demanding absurd amounts of money, claiming she had sacrificed her career for the family, that she deserved compensation for years of unpaid domestic work. The irony was that Lauren had continued to work the entire time. She never left her job at the accounting firm. She was never a full-time housewife. But now she was rewriting history to fit her victim narrative. My lawyer says she's wasting money on legal fees, Matthew told me over the phone. Everything she's asking for will be rejected, but she insists. She just wants to hurt you, I replied. The money is secondary. She wants to make you suffer because she lost control. You're probably right. Chloe continued to visit me regularly. She brought her books and did homework at my table while I cooked or knitted. I liked having her around. Her presence filled the house with a young, hopeful energy. One afternoon, while I was making fresh lemonade, Chloe closed her book with a snap. "Grandma, I have to tell you something." I turned to look at her. Her expression was serious, worried. "What's wrong, my child?" "I saw Mom yesterday, at the supermarket. She was with a woman I didn't know. They were talking quietly, but I managed to hear something." "What did you hear?" Chloe bit her lower lip. "Mom was telling that woman that you had stolen something from her, that she had proof the house should be Dad's, that she was going to get back what belonged to her, one way or another." I felt my blood run cold. I sat in the chair across from Chloe and took several deep breaths before speaking. "Did you recognize the woman she was with?" "No. I'd never seen her, but she was carrying a large briefcase. She looked like a lawyer or something. I need to talk to Mr. Hayes." I called immediately. The lawyer answered on the third ring. I explained what Chloe had heard. He was silent for several seconds before responding. "Mrs. Vance, I need you to understand something. Lauren has no legal basis to claim your property, none. But that doesn't mean she won't try to cause you problems." "What kind of problems?" "She can file frivolous lawsuits. She can try to question the validity of your husband's will. She can allege there was coercion or manipulation. None of it will succeed, but it will cost time and money to defend against. So what do I do?" "Stay alert. Don't sign anything she or her representatives present to you. Don't talk to any lawyer but me, and document any attempt she makes to approach you." "Okay, I will." We hung up. Chloe looked at me with worried eyes. "Are you going to be okay, Grandma?" "I'm going to be fine. Your mother is desperate, and desperate people do stupid things. But I have the law on my side." I didn't sleep well that night. Every noise in the house made me jump. The creaking of the beams, the wind against the windows, the distant bark of a dog. I got up every hour to check that the doors were locked, that the windows were secured. I felt like a prisoner in my own home, and I hated that feeling. The next day, I went to the community center. I needed a distraction. Helen noticed immediately that something was wrong. "You look like you haven't slept," she said as we sat down with our knitting. I told her everything, what Chloe had heard, the call with the lawyer, my nighttime fears. "That woman is a plague," Helen said with contempt. "But don't let her live in your head rent-free. That's exactly what she wants. She wants you to live in fear." "I don't want to be afraid, but I can't help it." Margaret, who had been listening to our conversation, leaned in. "My nephew is a police officer. If you want, I can ask him to make rounds on your street every so often, just to give you some peace of mind." "You would do that?" "Of course. That's what friends are for." I was overwhelmed by her kindness. These women I had only known for a few weeks were willing to help me, to protect me, to make me feel less alone. That afternoon, Margaret's nephew, an officer named Samuel, came to my house. He was a young man, about 30, with a serious but kind face. "Mrs. Vance, my aunt told me about your situation. I'm going to pass by your street twice a night during my patrol. If you see anything suspicious, anything at all, call this number." He gave me his personal card. He explained what to do in case of an emergency. He showed me how to activate the panic alarm on my cell phone. "I also recommend you install a camera at your entryway. It doesn't have to be expensive. There are some that connect to Wi-Fi, and you can watch from your phone. If anyone approaches your door, it will be recorded." That same week, Matthew helped me install 2 cameras, one at the front door, one in the backyard. He taught me how to use the app on my phone to see the recordings. "You'll be safer now, Mom." "Thank you, son." It was the first time in weeks I had called him son without it hurting. The days passed, the cameras recorded. Officer Samuel drove down my street every night. Little by little, I started to sleep better, to feel less paranoid. But then, one Thursday afternoon, as I was returning from the community center, I saw something that chilled my blood. Lauren was standing in front of my house. She wasn't alone. There was a man with her, tall, in a gray suit, with a briefcase. They were taking pictures of the house, of the garden, of the numbers on the door. I stopped at the corner. My first reaction was to run towards them and demand they leave. But I remembered Mr. Hayes's words, "Document everything. Do not confront." I took out my phone and started recording a video from where I stood. Lauren and the man walked around the house, measuring things with a tape measure. The man wrote notes in a legal pad. After 10 minutes, they got into a car and left. I waited 5 more minutes before approaching my house. I checked the cameras. They had recorded everything from different angles. I called Mr. Hayes immediately. I sent him the videos. He called me back 30 minutes later. Mrs. Vance, this confirms my suspicions. Lauren is preparing some kind of lawsuit, probably claiming community property rights to the house, or trying to argue that the house increased in value during her marriage to your son and that she's entitled to a portion. Can she do that? She can try. She won't win, but she can try. I'm going to file a protective motion. I'm also going to notify the divorce judge of this harassing behavior. How much is all this going to cost? He hesitated before answering. About $2,000 in additional fees, plus court costs. I felt my stomach tighten. $2,000. It was money I didn't have. My savings were limited. My pension barely covered basic expenses. I'll take care of it, said a voice behind me. I turned around. Chloe was standing in the kitchen doorway. She had let herself in with her key. No, my child, I'm not going to let you. Grandma, I have the scholarship money. It was for books and expenses, but I can work more hours on the weekends. You are not going to lose this house because of my mother. Her eyes shone with determination. With that fire I recognized because it was the same one that burned in my own chest. Chloe, I can't accept that. She came over and took my hands in hers. Yes, you can, and you will. Because this house is yours, because my mom is wrong, and because I am not going to let her hurt you anymore. I cried. I hugged my granddaughter and cried on her shoulder while she held me tightly. In the end, I accepted her help. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. Mr. Hayes needed the money to proceed with the legal motions. Chloe transferred the money that same night. $2,000 of her scholarship money, money she had earned with her academic effort, money that should have been for her future, and she was spending it to protect me from her own mother. The weight of that reality crushed me, but it also filled me with a new rage. Not at Chloe, at Lauren, at her boundless ambition, at her complete lack of scruples. That woman hadn't just stolen objects from me. She had stolen my peace. She had stolen her own daughter's scholarship money. She had stolen Matthew's dignity and his family. And I wasn't going to allow it anymore. I sat at my table that night and wrote a letter. Not to Lauren, but to myself, a promise. Eleanor Vance, you are 68 years old. You have survived the death of your husband. You have raised a son alone. You have worked until your hands bled. You have endured humiliation and betrayal. But you are still here. You are still standing. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is going to take away what you built with your sweat and your tears. This house is yours. This life is yours. And you will fight for it until your last breath. I folded the letter and put it in the envelope with the legal documents. My declaration of war. My promise of resistance. Lauren wanted a fight. Well, she was going to get one. But this time, I wasn't going to fight alone. I had Chloe and Helen and Margaret and the women from the community center and Mr. Hayes and Officer Samuel. I had an army of people who believed in me. And that made all the difference. The protective motion was filed the following Monday. Mr. Hayes called to confirm that the judge had accepted it. Lauren was prohibited from coming within 100 yards of my house. Any violation would result in immediate arrest. That should have calmed me down, but it didn't, because 2 days later, Matthew called me, his voice breaking. Mom, Lauren filed a lawsuit. She's alleging that Dad forced you to put the house in your name only, that there was coercion, that he was sick, and you took advantage of him. The phone almost fell from my hand. What? She has a new lawyer, someone who specializes in family fraud cases. They're saying you manipulated Dad when he was vulnerable. That's a lie. Your father was completely lucid when we signed those papers. The notary can confirm it. I know, Mom. I know. But she's going to try to prove it anyway. She's going to call witnesses. She's going to check medical records. She's going to do everything she can to paint you as a manipulator. I sat down heavily on the armchair. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My hands felt cold. My mouth was dry. When is the hearing? In 3 weeks. Mr. Hayes has already been notified. He says he needs to talk to you tomorrow. All right. I'll go. We hung up. I sat there staring at the wall, trying to process what I had just heard. Lauren didn't just want my house. She wanted to destroy my husband's memory. She wanted to tarnish the last moments we spent together. She wanted to turn an act of love into something dirty and criminal. That was something I could not forgive. That night, I took out all the photographs of my husband. I spread them out on the living room table. I saw him young at our wedding. I saw him holding baby Matthew. I saw him on his last birthday, weak but smiling, with a slice of cake in front of him. Forgive me, I whispered to the photographs. Forgive me for not being able to protect your memory from this horrible woman. But the photographs just stared back at me in silence. The next day, I went to Mr. Hayes's office. He had all the documents spread across his desk. Deeds, medical certificates, notarized statements. Mrs. Vance, I need you to tell me exactly what it was like the day your husband signed the property transfer. Every detail you remember. I closed my eyes and transported myself back to that day. Almost 20 years ago, my husband had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 3 months earlier. The doctors gave him 6 months to live, maybe less. He knew he was dying, and he wanted to leave everything in order. One Tuesday morning, he told me we had to go to the lawyer's office. I didn't understand why. I thought it was to make the will. But when we arrived, the notary had other papers prepared. My husband explained that he wanted to put the house completely in my name. Eleanor, he said, taking my hands, when I'm gone, I don't want you to have any problems. I don't want anyone to be able to take your home from you. This house is yours. We built it together, but you are the one who will live in it. Promise me you'll never let it go. I told Mr. Hayes all of that. Every word, every gesture, every tear I shed that day. Can the notary testify to your husband's mental state that day? He should be able to. My husband was completely lucid. He answered all the questions. He read all the documents. He signed without hesitation. Good. I'm going to subpoena him as a witness. I'm also going to get the medical records from that date. If your husband wasn't on strong medications that affected his judgment, that strengthens our case. And if Lauren brings false witnesses? Mr. Hayes looked at me seriously. Then we will dismantle them on the stand. Mrs. Vance, you have to trust the process. The truth is on your side. The documents are on your side. The law is on your side. I wanted to believe him. But the fear was stronger than reason. The following weeks were a hell of preparation. Mr. Hayes interviewed me 4 more times. He made me go over every detail of my marriage, of the house purchase, of my husband's illness, of the last months before his death. He also interviewed Matthew, and Chloe, and Helen, who had been our neighbor for decades and could testify about the relationship between my husband and me. We got the medical records, the notary's reports, the photographs from that day at the lawyer's office, which, luckily, the notary had taken as part of his file. In the photos, my husband looked clearly conscious, smiling, even. His signature on the documents was firm, without tremors, without doubt. Meanwhile, Lauren continued her campaign of harassment. She didn't come near my house because of the restraining order, but she found other ways. She told the neighbors I was a con artist, that I had tricked my dying husband. Some neighbors stopped greeting me. Others looked at me with suspicion. One day, someone keyed my car. They wrote "thief" on the driver's side door. I called Officer Samuel. He took photographs. He checked the street security cameras, but the angles didn't capture the culprit. I can't prove it was Lauren, he told me, but I suspect she's behind it or paid someone to do it. Every day was a new battle. Every night was a new test of endurance. But I wasn't alone. Helen came over every afternoon. She brought me food because I had stopped cooking. She forced me to eat even when I had no appetite. She stayed late watching soap operas with me, just so I wouldn't be alone with my thoughts. The women from the community center organized a collection. They raised $800 to help me with legal expenses. When they gave me the envelope, I cried in front of all of them. "You don't have to do this," I said. "Yes, we do," Margaret replied, "because what's happening to you could happen to any one of us. We are fighting with you." Chloe stayed over at my house on weekends. She said it was to keep me company, but I knew it was also to escape the tension at Matthew's apartment. Even though he and Lauren were separated, she still called him constantly, threatening him, manipulating him, trying to regain the control she had lost. One night, while Chloe was making popcorn in the kitchen, she asked me something that caught me off guard. "Grandma, do you ever regret marrying Grandpa?" "Why would you ask that?" "Because all of this started because of this house, because of what he left you. If you had never gotten married, you never would have met my mom. You would never be going through this." I sat next to her on the couch. I took her hand in mine. "I don't regret a single second. Your grandfather was the love of my life. He gave me this house, yes, but he also gave me 40 years of happiness. He gave me a son, and that son, despite all his mistakes, gave me you. Do you think I would trade all that just to avoid Lauren? Never." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Sometimes I wish I wasn't her daughter. I wish I had a normal mom. A mom who wasn't so mean. Your mother is sick, my child. Not physically, but in her soul. There are people who are never satisfied, who always want more, who can't see the damage they cause because they only see themselves. Do you think she'll ever change?" I hesitated before answering. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe. But you can't live your life waiting for that to happen. You have to live for yourself. Be better than her, Kinder. More generous. More human." "I'll try, Grandma. I promise." I hugged her tight. This beautiful girl, who had the bad luck of being born to a woman like Lauren, but who had chosen to be different, to be better. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. I got up at 5 in the morning. I showered with water so hot it left my skin red. I got dressed in my best clothes. The wine-colored dress, the pearl earrings, a little makeup to hide the dark circles and the exhaustion. I looked in the mirror one last time before leaving. I saw a 68-year-old woman who had been beaten by life but was still standing. I saw scars. I saw wrinkles. I saw pain. But I also saw strength. I saw dignity. I saw resistance. "You are not going to lose today," I told my reflection. "Today, you are going to show that woman that she cannot destroy you." Matthew picked me up at 8. Chloe was already in the car. Helen would come on her own later. We drove to the courthouse in silence, each lost in our own thoughts, each preparing for the battle to come. When we arrived, I saw Lauren standing on the courthouse steps. She was wearing an elegant black suit, high heels. Her hair was perfectly styled. She looked confident, arrogant, as if she had already won. Our eyes met for a second, and in that second, I saw it all. I saw her hatred, her ambition, her conviction that I was an obstacle that had to be eliminated. But she saw me too. And what she saw was something she didn't expect. She didn't see fear. She didn't see defeat. She saw determination. She saw a woman who was not going to back down. Her smile faltered for a moment. Just a moment. But it was enough. I climbed the courthouse steps with my head held high. Matthew on my right, Chloe on my left. My real family, my true support. And I walked into that courtroom, ready to fight the most important battle of my life. The courtroom was smaller than I had imagined. Cream-colored walls, rows of wooden benches, a high desk where the judge would sit. Everything smelled like old paper and cold coffee. Mr. Hayes was already there, organizing documents on a table. He greeted me with a firm handshake. "Breathe deeply. Stay calm. Just tell the truth. That's all we need." I sat between Matthew and Chloe. Helen arrived minutes later and sat on the bench behind us. She put her hand on my shoulder and squeezed it gently, a silent gesture of support that gave me more strength than I expected. Lauren entered with her lawyer, a man in his 50s with a dark gray suit and the expression of a hungry shark. They sat on the other side of the room. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes forward, chin up, perfect posture. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Renato Salas presiding. We all stood. The judge was an older man, about 65, with white hair and reading glasses hanging from a chain. He sat down and reviewed the documents in front of him for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. "We are here for the case of Lauren Vance versus Eleanor Vance," he said finally. "The plaintiff alleges coercion and manipulation in the property transfer that occurred 19 years ago. Are both parties ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," both lawyers said in unison. Lauren's lawyer began. He spoke for 20 minutes about how my husband had been gravely ill, how the pain medication could have affected his judgment, how I, supposedly, had taken advantage of his vulnerability to secure the property in my name alone. Every word was like a knife. Not just because they were lies, but because they sullied the memory of the man I loved. They turned his final acts of love into something twisted and malicious. When he finished, Mr. Hayes stood up. His voice was calm but firm. "Your Honor, the defense will show that these allegations are not only false, but are a desperate attempt by the plaintiff to gain financially from a property that never belonged to her or her husband." He called the notary first. Mr. Julian Morales, a 70-year-old man who had handled the property transfer, took the stand with a slow but steady gait. "Mr. Morales, do you remember the day Mr. Vance and Mrs. Vance came to your office to execute the property transfer?" "Perfectly. It was a Tuesday morning. They arrived early, before I officially opened." "Can you describe Mr. Vance's mental state that day?" "He was completely lucid. He answered all my questions with clarity. He read every document personally. He even asked some questions about the legal implications of the transfer. There was no indication of confusion or mental impairment." "Was there any point where you felt he was being pressured or coerced?" "None. In fact, he was the one who insisted on doing the process that very day. He told me, and I quote, 'I want to make sure my wife is protected. She is the one who will live here when I'm gone.'" Lauren's lawyer tried to question the testimony. He suggested the notary might not remember accurately after so many years. But Mr. Morales produced his notarial record from that day. Photographs, detailed notes, everything meticulously documented. Next, they called the oncologist who had treated my husband. The doctor confirmed that although my husband was on analgesics, his cognition was never compromised. The medications were for physical pain. They did not affect his ability to make decisions. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the stand, my legs trembling. I swore to tell the truth with my hand on the Bible. Mr. Hayes asked me the questions we had rehearsed. I told the story of my marriage, of how we bought the house together, of how we worked together to pay it off for 40 years, of how my husband wanted to ensure I was protected after his death. I spoke with a broken but firm voice. I cried when I remembered his last words, but I never wavered from the truth. Then Lauren's lawyer stood up to cross-examine me. His tone was aggressive, accusatory. "Mrs. Vance, isn't it true that you pressured your husband to give you the house?" "No. That is completely false." "Isn't it true that you isolated him from his family during his illness?" "My husband had no family other than me and our son, and Matthew visited us constantly." "Isn't it convenient that all your witnesses are people close to you?" "They are people who knew my husband and can speak to his state of mind. They are not accomplices to any crime, because there was no crime." The lawyer tried several more tactics, but I did not break down. I answered every question, with calmness, with dignity, with the truth. When I stepped down, Chloe squeezed my hand. "You did perfectly, Grandma," she whispered. They called Matthew. He testified about how he had been present during his father's illness, how he never saw any sign of manipulation or coercion, how his father had been clear and direct about his wishes. Lauren's lawyer tried to make it seem as if Matthew was on his mother's side only for convenience, but Matthew didn't let himself be intimidated. "I love my mother," he said in a strong voice, "but I am not here out of love. I am here for justice. My father did what he did because he loved my mother and wanted to protect her. To question that is a disrespect to his memory." I saw Lauren clench her fists on the table. Her face had turned red, but she could do nothing but watch. Helen also testified. She spoke of the years she had known us as neighbors, of how my husband and I were a team, of how he always treated me with respect and love, of how, during his illness, he constantly worried about my future well-being. Finally, Mr. Hayes presented all the documents: original deeds, medical records, photographs, notarized statements, everything forming a solid, unbreakable case. The judge called a 30-minute recess to review all the evidence. We left the room. Chloe hugged me. Matthew bought coffee for everyone. Helen made me laugh with an inappropriate joke about Lauren's lawyer. When we went back in, the judge had his decision. After reviewing all the evidence presented, he said in a clear, authoritative voice, "This court finds that there is no legal basis for the plaintiff's allegations. The testimonies clearly demonstrate that Mr. Vance was in full command of his mental faculties when he executed the property transfer. There is no evidence of coercion, manipulation, or fraud." I felt something release in my chest, as if a giant rock I had been carrying had finally fallen to the ground. Therefore, the lawsuit is dismissed in its entirety. Furthermore, due to the frivolous and harassing nature of this lawsuit, Mrs. Lauren Vance is ordered to pay the defense's legal fees, amounting to $4,200. Lauren shot up from her seat. "This is unfair. She stole from me. She stole what was mine." The judge banged his gavel again. "You are within your rights to appeal. But I warn you, if you file another frivolous lawsuit, you could face charges for judicial harassment. This court is adjourned." The bailiff escorted Lauren out of the room as she continued to scream incoherently. Her lawyer followed her, clearly regretting having taken the case. We walked out in silence. It wasn't until we were outside the courthouse, under the bright afternoon sun, that we allowed ourselves to celebrate. Chloe hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. "You won, Grandma, you won." Helen danced a little salsa step. I told you the truth would win." Matthew hugged me, his eyes full of tears. "Forgive me, Mom, for everything, for not defending you sooner, for letting it get to this." I looked him in the eyes. This was my son, the boy I raised, the man who made mistakes, but who had finally found the courage to do the right thing. "I forgive you," I said. "Now let's build something new." The following weeks were about rebuilding. Lauren never appealed. Her lawyer probably explained that she didn't stand a chance. She paid the legal fees in monthly installments, each payment a reminder that she had lost. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Matthew got full custody of Chloe. Lauren had supervised visitation rights, but Chloe rarely used them. I went back to my life, to the community center, to the dance classes, to the book club. But now it was different. I was no longer just Eleanor, the lonely widow. I was Eleanor, the woman who fought and won, the woman who defended herself, the woman who reclaimed her dignity. Matthew came to dinner every Sunday. He brought Chloe. We cooked together, we laughed, we shared stories. Slowly, we rebuilt what Lauren had broken. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after the hearing, I was sitting on my patio. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I had a cup of coffee in my hands. The flowers I had planted were blooming beautifully. Chloe was inside doing homework. Matthew had gone to the supermarket to buy things for dinner. Helen would be over soon for our movie night. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like jasmine and damp earth, and for the first time in decades, I felt completely at peace. Not because everything was perfect. There were still hard days. There were still painful memories. There were still scars. But they were my days, my memories, my scars. This was my house, my life, my peace, and no one could ever take it from me again. I opened my eyes and looked at my home, the walls I had painted, the garden I had cultivated, the windows where the golden light of sunset was streaming in. For the first time in decades, I whispered, I was free, and that freedom tasted sweeter than any victory.